Welcome, everybody. You're in the right place. Different look, different location, additional person. But this is the Dr. Nick's Amazing Man Stuff YouTube channel, and this is the Doctor's Orders live stream. My name is Dan. I am the co-host of this wonderful show. I am coming to you remote today from Wisconsin Dells at a hotel water park, and it's been an amazing time. So thanks to everybody that's been reaching out and saying all the kind things about the trip and family and everything. But today, we got a special one. We have a guest in the house. We got some stories that I think you guys are going to find entertaining. So get your snacks, get your lunch, get your beverages, and just enjoy. First off, we got to introduce the man, the myth, the host of this show here. And I'm going to kick it over. And guys, I'll be producing in the background. You might see me pop up for some reactions. But other than that, Nick's going to be kind of driving the show today. So without further ado, Mr. Nick, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. Actually, I'm doing better than good, because I have literally my oldest friend in existence here with me, my brother from another mother, Gabe. I'll introduce you guys to Gabe officially here in a minute. But no, I mean, we got an exciting day. We had last minute change of schedule. We were going to be doing just a review of the releases today, and then we were going to be going down to check out what is going to become our retail showroom, which is attached to Jill's new office. And I know we showed you guys that a while back. And it finally has some flooring. All the paint is done. We're getting ready to move Jill's desk in there and all that good stuff. But I think we're going to save that for next week, because randomly a little bluebird out of the sky came in from a scheduling standpoint today. Gabe is in town for Thanksgiving. And we are kind of checking on arrival times and everything else. And he was actually getting here right before the stream was going to start. And he's like, well, I'll kill some time in Boston or do whatever. And I was like, you know what? I'm like, why don't you just come down and join me for the live stream? I'm like, you know, it kind of makes sense. We just did a stream a couple of weeks ago about Hawaii stories and folklore. And we talked about night marchers, and we talked about white owls, and we talked about the Blue Room, and you know, all kind of Menehune, you know, we talked about some cool stuff. And it's so random. It's not random. I can stop saying things are random, because as a, you know, it's just, it's too frequent at this point. But Gabe's actually moving back to Kauai really soon here to work on some really cool stuff with, like, essentially the leaders of what is kind of still in existence, the Kingdom of Hawaii. And so we're going to hear whatever Gabe can and is willing to share about that. And we're going to talk about growing up in Hawaii. I'm sure Gabe will embarrass me and tell some terrible stories. We keep things PG here. All right. All right. This is a family friendly stream here. So, you know, none of that stuff about the bike rides that my mom always tells stories about. And then so there's my mom right there, Julie, commenting on Gabe is an honorary son of mine. Love that kid. Yes, so PG-13 maybe, Jill. Yeah, you're right. PG-13. We get a little racy sometimes, but no, this is let's kind of start. Let's maybe create a little bit of an outline here. Maybe we start with products, right? Gabe's been here all morning now working on some of this new stuff. He just saw it all get put up online, and saw my photo production process, and we've been doing some bottling downstairs. And oh yeah, he walked in and we just went straight to work. Basically, it's like, hey,
how I go anywhere I go.
How you doing? It's been a year or so. Doing pretty good. Hey, hold this. So I guess everyone's been waiting for this. So without further ado, let's talk about what is coming out today and what is live on the website, hopefully right now. I have not checked the Shopify gods to see if they are being good to us, but I am assuming that they are. I know that the shower products are good to go. And if I go here now, yep, we are live with the new peppermint rosemary beard oil as well. So for anyone who's been waiting, the peppermint rosemary beard oil, the body wash, the beard wash, and beard conditioner are all live on the website as of right now. I can say that the shop smells absolutely fantastic. You could probably smell it when you walked in, could you? Like all the way from the front door, like you walk in.
And then when I went through this shop,
Yeah,
the mixing
smell
shop,
the
I was like, whoa, that smells
peppermint
great.
rosemary. Yeah, it's like you walk in here and you smell wood shop, and then like after the wood shop, you kind of get a hint of peppermint rosemary. It's like, this doesn't smell like your typical wood shop in here. So it's so I'll tell you, it's crazy. I used this. I used I used all the new products today. So I just so everyone's kind of aware, I used the peppermint rosemary body wash and beard wash today, and I have the peppermint rosemary beard oil in beard. And it's Jill. I mean, she walked into the office today. She's like, "Oh my God, the bathroom smelled so good after you left the house today." And it was it's great. It's like invigorating, it's lively. I don't use much peppermint rosemary stuff, but I actually might change that a bit because I really did. I liked it. It was nice. I was a little concerned. I told Dan this morning, it was I've been bottling his stuff for the past 2 days, and at the bottling machine, the peppermint rosemary is potent. Like it is strong when you're like right on top of that machine, getting it all in the nose. It smells really strong. So I was like, oh boy, I hope this is going to work for shower products. I know it's great in the beard oil, but let's hope it does. And it could not have surprised me in a more pleasant way. It's perfectly balanced in the shower. The steam gets in it, and you get that rosemary and the peppermint and the steam, and it gets in your nose and it wakes up your senses. It was great. It's awesome stuff. And what's interesting is these guys, everyone that you're meeting here today on this stream, they basically come up with like our whole product roadmap. Like everyone in here. Yeah. Like these are the guys that literally dictate everything we do. And
the market.
Absolutely. I mean, that's it. And we haven't had to step back and think about, okay, what's next? Like what might people want? Because we have a whole list constantly of everyone in here that's just constantly suggesting things to us. So we basically base any of our releases on what people are asking for. And so we never have to do it like in a vacuum,
That's why you're successful.
Well, and it's the beauty of having this community here, man. Like it's one of those things where you never have to wonder, really. I mean, we're super transparent with everyone here, and they are the exact same with us, which is fantastic. And I see a question here. Let's see, Sebastian. Question to Nick. How long a time did it get for you to have that long of a beard? That is my goal. So, Sebastian, the last time I shaved was the day my son was born in 2012. However, I kept it like short. I kept it like about that long. Kept it business beard, I called it, for a long time until 2018. And then I started letting it grow long. So the growth that you see here from about here down all the way down there, that's about 5 years. And I will say that from 2012 to 2015, before we started Dr. Nick's, I was using no product or some that didn't work for me really well. And then in 2015, I started using the stuff that we produce, and I haven't used anything else since 2015. So all the length you see here has been created using our products.
And as it gets that, other than someone with scissors, it's breakage that damages it.
Yeah. So there's some things like, honestly, the hardest, the number one cause of people not growing their beards long is trimming it. It is, because people, they try to like shape things up, and the stories, Dan's heard it a million times. He does Beard Advice Live with his wife, Sam, where people send in pictures of their beards and they ask for advice on like what they want to do and how they should trim and how they should grow. And Dan can attest to it. Like, how many times have you heard it was getting pretty long and it was looking pretty good, and I started to do a trim and I messed it up, so I just took it all off.
Man.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
We're just so Dan's practicing miming on his vacation here. So, but no, I mean, I hear it all the time from people that literally just they have to stop and they restart because they just don't like the way they trim. My neighbor Corey is notorious for it. He'll come out with like all of a sudden like no beard and be like, "Yeah, I was doing a trim, I didn't like it."
Do you have any advice for trimming? Or
yeah, well, and so. I don't have that much advice for trimming because I don't trim.
Well, that might be it.
Yeah. And so like a lot of people do transparency trims, which means like when the beard gets to a length and it starts getting thin on the end, any part that's transparent to your shirt, you know, they'll trim that off and they make it so that maintains the you know, the density.
Yeah.
But hey, yeah, because this look at him there, looking like a stud with his winnings at the National Beard Championship. We got a national champion making comments here with us. We got, and he can confirm, he says Dr. Nick's beard products give major assistance to your facial hair goals. And you know, something else to point out on that note, and Sebastian, to your question too, is our beard oil isn't just hair oil. A lot of people here know this, but for anyone here that knows it, we'll repeat it. Anyone that doesn't know it, this can be new info, is that our carrier blend is super focused on being not just a hair oil, but also being a skin oil. And that's kind of based on the concept that you can't grow tall trees without healthy soil. And it's the same thing on your face. If your skin's upset, you know, it's not going to want to push out more hair that's going to make it more upset, you know? So that's, you know, because is a perfect example though, of just like healthy, happy growth that's just pushing its way to wherever the hell he wants it to go now, because his face is happy. And JT Steve had an idea pop into his head the other day. This sounds like a new product. Some do sample packs with a theme. Since Doc of Time and Space, maybe when samples drop, they come in a time machine capsule to send them out. Dude, I love that. You know, what was actually funny about that, we talked about doing something with like a blue phone booth box, you know, like Doctor Who, like Doctor of Time and Space, right? And turns out that there's significant copyright issues with that. So we're being a doctor of time and space does not allow me to evade the USPTO. So unfortunately, we went away from that. But I love that. I love the idea of like a little time capsule or something. And we are working on that, JT Steve. We're working on messing around with that. So Ruben. Yes. So Black Friday sales are going on, and we're going to announce those this week. With any luck, we'll be announcing those shortly. It's going to be really similar to what we did last year, with kind of a tiered level of discounts across different products. And those are going to be launched at midnight on Thanksgiving. So the sale is going to run for Black Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then all of Monday for Cyber Monday. So it's going to go from basically, you know, 12:01 on Friday to 11:59 on Monday is the way that's going to run. But you'll be seeing that coming out on Instagram, and we'll be putting some stuff out there. I think we're going to do an SMS blast for that as well, just to make sure people know about it. But yeah, that's we're going to be doing some good stuff there. And so detecting Michigan boy asks, question for Nick, question for me. Dan recommends rotating products every 3 days or less, and you said you only use your products. Have you ever heard the beard plateau effect feeling? So okay, I switch our products constantly, so I'm going between, you know, different scents all the time. The carrier stays the same. Now, one of the things to note is that wouldn't normally constitute rotating, because the carrier is the same. And if you're using a brand, for example, that uses fragrance oils are chemically engineered to be biologically identical to each other. So that way it doesn't affect your formulations. We use all essential oils. And so not only do the essential oils impart fragrance, right? If you look beyond the fragrance, essential oils provide a whole lot of other effects, from both aromatherapy, but also from a skin and a hair impact. The different essential oils do impact quite a bit of how things absorb and the benefits they bring to your hair and your skin. And we're actually working on some more detail on that note for our product pages that don't just list a scent profile. It'll also list out the different benefits that have been known to be derived from the various essential oils that make up our scent profiles. So we're going to be working on kind of bolstering up some information there, because I have not experienced a plateau effect. And I have to assume it's because my skin is constantly feeling a difference in the products I'm using, because they all have different essential oils in them, which are all very biologically different from each other. You know, they're different molecular sizes, different molecular weights. And they all have different apothecary benefits from both a hair and a skin and an aromatherapy standpoint. So I haven't really experienced it, and I am looking for terminal length here. Like, I have no idea where it stops, but I'm dying to find out. I mean, I might have one of those beards that stops at my waist. I might have a beard that stops at my knees. I really have no idea. And so it hasn't stopped. And what's funny is the way I keep track of like if I'm getting new growth or not is when I do a bun. I'm like sitting here, I do my little, I'll get the mic out of the way here, but I do my little, wrap before bed, and I sit here and do this thing. And I'm like, ooh, okay, I'm wrapping around 3 times now. I'm not wrapping around twice. So like, it's funny. I kind of keep track of, I don't measure or anything like that. Maybe I should. But I keep track of how many times I can wrap it around my fingers before it goes into a bun. And I'm like, hey, I'm almost getting close to 4 wraps now. This is looking pretty good. So who is Gabe, and what is he up to these days? So we talked about some new products. So who is Gabe? Gabe, I actually, it was funny. I was thinking about it the other day, and everyone here knows I've moved around like a ton, right? And we even counted the number of places. I think it ended up like 34 or 36 something houses. I forget. We totaled it all up. And if you look back, starting with Hawaii, there's kind of one person from each place I've lived that I still keep in touch with. And like I was talking about our wedding, we only had 50 something people at our wedding, but we had people from almost 20 states at our wedding.
That was quite fun.
Dude, yeah, it was quite the mix. And so, Gabe and I became friends when I was 11, you were 12, I think, something like, it was right we were split there. And, we made friends through a mutual friend that I had met in the neighborhood on Kauai. And it was funny because this will be a good story. So the first time Gabe and I met didn't go so well.
We butted heads.
Oh yeah, we butted heads like big time, and we had it out like full on brawl on the beach. Yeah, we like beat the crap out of each other, and we've talked about this on the stream before. We feel like the people that you start off with like that, the people that you start off like with that, you tend to either stay that way, or if you don't and you get past it, those typically end up being like your closer relationships in life, because you kind of got like you pulled off the mask right away.
Exactly.
Like,
let's see this guy.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Like the cuts of your jibs. And so it was funny because, right after that, we became really good friends.
Yeah. Basically inseparable.
Absolutely inseparable, to the point where Gabe had some stuff go on with his housing situation with his family. And there was a dispute over some land. It didn't go well, and they were displaced, we'll say, from the place that they were living at the time. And Gabe moved in with us. And so my half brothers that are much older than me, 10 and 20 years older than me, they were already long moved out. And, I was 11, and all of a sudden, like, I had a brother again. Gabe was living with me, and we even went, we went to school together. We moved multiple houses together. Yeah. You were with us moving from Kalapaki up to Kapa.
I met you guys in Waimea. You guys went to Kalapaki. Yeah.
Yep. And then we went to Kalapaki, and then we came back up to Wailua Homesteads.
Yes.
Yeah. Up the Wailua River. And so Gabe actually, he lived essentially in 3 different houses with us on Kauai. And then when we moved back to the mainland was right around the time you moved back to the mainland too, to live with your dad in San Diego.
Yeah. That was about.
Yeah. And so with the stories I tell about having homeschooling with a tutor lady named Jan above her husband's lawnmower shop, Gabe was the other person there with me with Jan.
That was pretty interesting.
That was interesting. You tell people they're like, where'd you go to middle school? You're like, at a lawnmower shop. Yeah. And they're like, that explains a lot.
And I figured out my mic. I'm on a couple devices, and my computer was muted and didn't want to pick up a computer that doesn't have a mic. Go figure. But
imagine
you gotta talk about that, your schooling and the teacher and her home and whatever you could share, because that is a super interesting story, and your field trips and stuff. I love hearing about that.
Oh, Jan
eating manifest powder or whatever that was.
Oh yeah.
It didn't get us. It was just like chalk, but she's like, someone manifested this, eat it. We're like, all right.
Yeah. And so people, who knows what came from all that? Okay, let's go back. Let's talk about Jan for a second. So Jan was fantastic. She went everywhere with her dogs in her van, you know, and she lived in a almost tetrahedral shaped house. It was like that weird, like, it wasn't quite a tetrahedron, obviously, but it was like it was like you took a tetrahedron and sliced it in half, and that was kind of like her place. And she had copper rods and the supports that went down into the ground. She had dual layers of drywall in the place, and she actually put copper mesh when they built it into the walls. So her whole house was a Faraday cage.
Yeah.
Like no radio signals in or out. But she would, like, you know, she would figure out things about us and how we learned, you know, and sometimes it was in the classroom there above the lawnmower shop. Sometimes it was outside. Sometimes it was at the beach.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was
where we're going that day.
Hopi Falls, like going somewhere where we'd sit next to a waterfall, and that would be school that day. Or she'd tell us to just go, and you know,
wander off in the car.
yeah, just go wander off. And what was funny is she didn't like the idea of a curriculum, and she's the one that actually built into my head that not everyone is good at everything they're good at every day.
That's the truth.
And you know, and it was weird that we were like so young when she was teaching us this, and I still use it today. Like, I have my list for the week, and I'm like, I don't say like, here's what I'm doing this day and that day and this day. I'm like, here's what I'm doing this week, and it's got to get done, and I'm going to pick from that list as I feel like I'm in the right headspace to do those things. And she taught us that, like, literally in like 6th, 7th grade when we were going to middle school.
Recognize what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Not when it needs to be done.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, so she kind of had like this curriculum that she let us pick through. You know, it was like, here's the stuff that they say we need to do. What are we working on this week? And we'd come in on Monday and we'd say, let's do that and that. And, you know, that's what we would study that week. And by the end of the time, you know, we did get through like the bulk of the stuff. Or she'd trick us, because if we'd like avoid something for a long time, she'd get us in one day and she'd say, okay, we're going to go do this today. And we'd go do something random. And then we'd get back the next day. She'd be like, all right, well, that thing that you've been avoiding, that's off the list, because that's what we did. We're like, really? That was geometry? And she's like, yep. Yeah, we figured out how big trees were or whatever it was, you know, but it was a trip, man. And then of course, moving my relocation from there was going straight from that to Newton South High School in Massachusetts. So I was, you know, completely just misaligned with what everyone else in the world was doing.
That's the hard part about it. Like, once you're on the Hawaii vibe and like the way people think there, it's really hard. It's a different ideology.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, philosophy, you know, down to the theories of value I've found.
Yeah,
and
it is.
You know, like it's
well, and that's a huge part of it too, is like what people find value in, and like the store of value is very different in those people's minds than us just thinking about store of value as money.
Yeah, it's an experiential thing. It's all experiential value. There is not, you know, no, you can't own land. You know, no one can carve land. It's what you can do with it, what you can wrap your arms around, what your ohana can, you know, use.
Yeah,
what you own
the ohana. Yeah,
and
that's the thing.
And so, you know, you have with, you know, for Hawaiians, there's the ohana, which is what they call family, but that's not really family. It's the people who raise you mimetically, or with your thoughts and ideas and how you work. And then you have your iwi, which is, you know, like, you know, where you sprout from. And so children can be like, as they're being interacted with, either before they speak or afterwards, they can be like, oh, you're a farmer. Here, we're going to send you with the farmer ohana. You know, they're over the valley. And that fixed two things. It fixed, you know, because genetics on a small island is a thing. And so they were able to, like, when there was a genetic check of the Hawaiian people, they're from everywhere.
Yeah.
They're fully intermixed, and it kept professions into what it was. So like, you know, so-and-so wasn't going to fight for, hey, that's my farm. You know, you're the best farmer and you have your best second farmer. You're like, okay, you know, you're in charge of the farm now. I'm dead. Right. They carry the bones, so to say.
Right.
But nothing would ever go bad. Like, there's no empty factories, because no one owns the factories. No one owns the real capital.
Right.
Like, if there's a factory and someone's like, I can use that factory, they're like, go use that factory. Let's make something for society.
Yeah.
And it was, yeah.
It's crazy how that happened too. And you look at like how that changed, but also didn't change. You know what I mean? Like there's a large portion of Hawaii that doesn't follow that doctrine at all. Right. But there's a huge faction that has retained that.
Yeah.
And there's like there's like a whole battle going on like right now.
It's literally a battle. It's,
It
you know,
is.
they call it denationalization. It's a war crime, not to
Right.
say anything, forcing Hawaiian kids not to speak Hawaiian, teaching them not to use their
That's
social
denationalization.
That's denationalization. And you can't do that in anywhere you take over.
I mean, wasn't that part of like Sun Tzu's like Art of War? Like one of the things where you have to divide and then you have to dissolve culture.
Yeah.
And you have to then adopt culture. And that's essentially displacement.
Yep.
Right. Without moving people, you move their culture away from them.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's what we did to Hawaii.
It is. And it hasn't been fully successful. They've tried, we've tried very hard. But especially on Kauai and, the people, Kumpa'ula, who taught me when I was a kid, learning the names of all the rocks on the hill was quite an amazing thing. And then you learn the ideals of it. And I was in 4th grade when I learned the switching of the families. I was like, man, that's really smart. There's going to be no inbreeding, or you can't find it, kind of thing.
Right. Right.
The Hawaiian people, they were, they had names for every vein in our body.
Yeah.
It was their science was highly advanced. They didn't have any written language. It was all spoken, but then there was hula with it.
Right.
So you can't have the slide of poorly pronounced things.
Right.
So if you're saying something and making an action,
that can be interpreted.
Yeah. It's the same, so you want to keep your saying and your action the same. That's why hula was what it was.
Oh, wow. Because it was more of a form of communication and passing down stories and tradition than it was any kind of like a presentation sort of a dance.
It was fully private too. Your hula was your family's hula, your ohana's hula was a private thing. And hula came out after we colonized.
Wow. Dude, I mean, so God, it's almost like embarrassing that I was telling, Hawaiian folklore without Gabe here, right? Because it's like the portion that I have is like literally this much compared to what's in this guy's head, so one quick thing, and then we're going to jump on to what's Gabe working on these days. And so Sebastian, question again, this time from his son Felix, would like to know how old/young I am. And he says hi to everybody. So hello, Felix.
Hi, Felix.
Nice to meet you. And I just turned 40. And so I'm going to say that I just turned like 32 for the 8th time. I think I like that idea, that's kind of how I feel. But no, it's I am officially 40. So we'll move right past that question and not focus too much more on how old I feel. Thanks for that, Felix. But let's see, is there any other questions I need to grab before we jump into what Gabe is doing now? I saw Leo's comment pop up and saying that sounds like a good way to get an excellent education, and it is. Like that's the multifaceted education thing. Like is it's you almost call it adjunct education, right? Because it really is like you're taking a bunch of things that don't really make sense together and putting them together to eventually create a good foundation. But Leo, I try to think like, obviously I appreciate the way that I kind of built my foundation of knowledge of the world. And I'm always trying to figure out like, how can I, in 2023, how can I make that possible for my son? And it's sad to say that like we're in Massachusetts, which according to the US, school system rankings, right? We have like a bunch of the top 100 and then some of the top 10 and a couple of even like the top 5, like high schools and colleges, universities in the world. But no matter how good it is, it still follows such a broken system. And Dan can attest to this, right? I mean, he was a history teacher for a long time, as everyone knows. And it's amazing just even when you have the intention of knowing how something should work, when you're working inside of a system that's as broken as this, there is, I don't think, any real way at scale, just proving how there is too many people, right? I don't think you can do that at scale. I'm not sure it's possible. And I think it needs to get broken into smaller groups and smaller communities in order to make that happen. So you kind of got to go somewhere where like that population isn't really that much of a problem, right?
You got to care about the kids you're teaching.
Yeah.
And even though they're being difficult with you, you got to care about their difficulties and challenges.
Yeah, you do. And
Like-
speaking of, Ruben says to key right exactly on that. You know, he would have thrived in an environment like that because he was hyper and couldn't focus. And fast forward years later, and oh, look, I have ADHD.
Funny how it goes. Huh?
Funny how that works. Like Gabe and I have both been diagnosed with ADHD. And I've also been diagnosed with hyperfocus, which is kind of like the antithesis of ADHD. Yeah. And I went and saw someone who wanted to prescribe me Vyvanse years ago because he said I had hyperfocus issues and that I actually focused too much on things. And then other stuff became stressful because I ignored them. And that was actually the root of the
bottleneck.
Yeah. And so I realized that's actually a part of me that I never want to change, right? Because I lock on to things.
I relate to that. Yeah, like
I stay on them until I figure them out, right? And like I don't talk about it until I got my head wrapped around it, you know? And I think it's a good thing. But learning isn't a separate discipline. It's a normal function of being human. That it is. Learning and forgetting. You know, it's like someone was saying that the brain's ability to forget is almost equal to, if not more important than the brain's ability to remember.
Yeah.
And it is, right? It's like learning and forgetting. They're both completely normal parts of how our brains work. And pruning is important, man. Like
you and I were talking about that right when my first son was born, Nick.
Yeah. We were talking about that
stuff.
book, Magic Trees of the Mind.
That is the book.
Yeah.
Very good book.
It is a good book. If anybody is ever, you know, if you have young ones at home and they're going through like that developmental stage, read Magic Trees of the Mind, because it's really cool to see like how kids are literally over connected when it starts, right? And that's why kids can learn other languages faster. They can pick things up super quick. They're like these moldable little sponges, and it's because they have hyper connected synapses in their brains. And as they go through those first years of life, before they're learning language and before they're learning other stuff, they're learning, their brain is learning which connections to sever. And so like that saying of like use it or lose it is absolutely more true than ever when you're that young, because the pathways you don't use, those get trimmed, and some of them are impossible to rebuild, if not very, very difficult, you know?
Unlikely.
Super unlikely. Yeah.
They call it default mode network.
Yeah, dude, and it's like just a hyper connected environment, which is why
For
kids,
children, children have no default mode; they're just all there. But as we mature in age, what we basically the valley we creep into with our minds is our default mode network.
Those ruts that you carve, yeah,
and you can always work your way out of it, but.
And I've heard someone describe that as like water going through rock. You know, it's like,
exactly
like the pathway, the more times you walk one of those pathways, the deeper those grooves get. And like the more permanent they are. Yeah. Well, so anyway, little tangent there, but that sounds cool. What was the name of the book? Boom. Yeah. Dan just popped it up there for you, Ruben. So definitely check it out, man. But okay. Let's talk about what's going on. Like, what are you working on? Like, what are you doing?
First off, as you mentioned that, we lost our house back in '95. I went and spoke to one of the Chandlers, and, I'm moving back in. I'm going to clear the land. No one's really touched it. I think I sent you a video of it.
Yeah.
The big, beams are still there, charred up, 30 years later.
Wow.
So I'm going to clear that. I'm going to start a little bee farm there. And just to have our basic income and whatnot. So, and they kind of do their own thing.
Yeah.
But what I'm doing with the nation of Kauai is who I'm working with. Is so that, there's the sovereign, there's the state of Hawaii, and they have, it's an independent state, kind of like, America is an independent state and Britain's an independent state.
Right.
But the nation of Kauai is one of the nations of the independent state of Hawaii. And it was the only one that wasn't conquered by the nation of Hawaii.
Interesting.
There's the Big Island. There's the nation of Hawaii. There's the nation of Maui, nation of Molokai, and the nation of Oahu, and nation of Kauai and Niihau. So the King of Kamehameha, he was able to conquer through war all the other islands, but not Kauai. He tried a couple times. Really, no one has ever conquered Kauai. Funny story: one leper in like 1860 something took out 21 Hawaiian Marines in Kala'au.
Wow.
Like Kauai is just like, there's a certain the independence to Kauai. But so I'm going to be working with the nation of Kauai, and we're going to be working to so the common idea that we've seen is it's domestic like rights that people are saying, like, we're Hawaiians, we should have homes to live in, and that's really important. It's like,
right,
like it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Well, yeah,
but no one's talking about the capital development of Hawaii. Like I went there 2 months ago,
Yep.
and Wonder Bread was $7 a loaf in the most fertile land in the world.
Wow.
It's absurd. Like,
because they're importing all of it on a boat.
They're forced to. It has to come in on an American ship made of American steel, owned by an American. It's the same thing. It's the Jones Act.
Wow.
As with Puerto Rico. And,
yep. And so they're a bit like, they're basically saying, like, if you want or don't want to be a part of our system, as long as you exist in this system, these are your confines, and you need to take trade from us and no one else.
You'd think that the rules that say you can't impart travel between one state and another.
Yeah,
but hey,
I thought that went away with someone's. It sounded like Mark, but a little different.
And so there's a gentleman named Dr. Keanu Sai who works at the University of Hawaii. He has argued for the independent state of Hawaii in The Hague. They've developed something called the Lorenzo Doctrine, and it's been set up in 2022, and we're using this because it essentially says that the United States government doesn't have any right to, like, there's no legal structure the United States government has to enforce its laws anywhere else. Like, United States, it can't say, like, if Hawaii's territory is Hawaii, it can't be United States. And so the state of Hawaii is the government of the state of Hawaii, and those are the laws they enforce.
Interesting.
And so, like, people are like, you can't evict Hawaiians because it's the action of the Hawaiian government.
Right.
It's, under when America went to Iraq and when we took over the Philippines, we had to follow the Filipino law and the Iraqi law.
Right.
And in Germany in 1942.
Right.
And so we haven't been doing that with Hawaii.
Interesting.
We called it a state. Grover Cleveland apologized within 7 months. Like he said, well, the State Department just took a free country. We're working on giving it back. And
wow.
And then the Congress started doing some funny stuff, and here we are. But the
sands of time, man. It's like, and now everyone just goes to this captured environment, and it's crazy that they are as hospitable as they are while still having an edge about them about it. You know what I mean? Because they depend on it right now for a lot of income and a lot of revenue.
That's absolutely, it's all they can have. Like, they're holding on to their rock.
But it's like reverse Stockholm syndrome.
And that's if Dr. Keanu Sai, he talks about that a lot. I can send you over the links. It's hours of stuff, but he talks about the original constitutions of Hawaii, the how it was overthrown, what happened after it was overthrown, and how it became a state. And then he goes on to talk about what to do next. Yeah. Because that's what we need. And that's, kind of what I'm talking to them about. Like, no one wants war. It's established. We have established commerce. We have established tourism. We have so much established there. Right. And, it's no reason to lose what we have to gain what we can. Yep. So that's what we're all working towards. And, the nation of Kauai is a little different. They're, they give their support to Hawaii. If you read the old legal documents, they aren't,
but they are sort of Mad Maxing their way through this thing at the moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
We certainly are. It's a lot of excitement. I'm going to go back in a couple weeks, and I might be part of. They're rounding up the sheriffs to get rid of a bunch of John Does. Dude, because but we're going to be there. The media is going to be there. I'm going to be documenting a bunch of this stuff. That's awesome. In my writing, and really, yeah.
Let's see. Oh, look. Anyone else notice that these guys both wear shades of green without even coordinating at first? Well, I mean, Gabe and I call each other every morning to make sure, even when he's out in Ohio and I'm here, that we're like color coordinated just in case something comes up. But so, so we talk about what's there, what's happening, and kind of like what some of the challenges were that led up to this. But here's what's really cool in my mind about this, guys, is that so Gabe and I Gabe grew up there, right? I joined in and I kind of became a transplant that was welcomed in with open arms by our circle of friends there. And now we both went away, right? We both went and followed paths that weren't attached to Kauai. And interestingly enough, we both became technologists, both in slightly different disciplines, but it was very interesting because we'd kind of do this constantly. You know, we'd kind of weave past each other, then come back the other direction. And so we both are, you know, are technically rooted. We're both engineers at our cores. And no matter what we're doing, we act like engineers when we're doing it. And so what's interesting now is that Gabe and I have both had a focus on blockchain technology, how that works from both a application, a infrastructure, but also a monetary system, a store of value, all the things that go around the cryptocurrency part of blockchain, but also the immutable source of information that's the part of blockchain, right? And so you look at the weird thing that happened where like we left and we both had this constant undying connection to the island, you know? It was always drawing us back. It's always, you know, called both of us constantly. And
calls.
yeah. And then so you look at what happened there, it was almost like it let us go and it let us nice try. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've heard that story. We're actually going to tell that story, Jill. And so we you know, we both, it's almost like the island let us go and told us to go gain knowledge and skills that would be important to then come back and help the place that we fell in love with growing up.
Yeah.
And that call has now come back to Gabe. And he's literally probably, yeah, well, both of us. And we'll talk about that in a minute here too. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be remote. And
he'll be cold. I'll be warm.
I'll be cold, he'll be warm, and then I'll be doing plenty of live streams from somewhere there much more tropical, I'm sure, at some point. And so what's interesting though is, you know, there all the random things that you collect over the years and you pivot from doing one focus to focusing on something else to focusing on something else as life just comes at you and you go through this crazy journey. I bet, and this is, I've been thinking this, we haven't really even talked about it. Do you get the feeling when you're there talking about what you're going to be helping them with and the part of this that you're going to help with, which is the economic, the independent side of it, but also the driving that independence with technology? Do you get the weird sense that you're all of a sudden using everything that you've learned in the past 30 years all at once?
All at once.
But you never there was never a roadmap of like, go figure these things out so you can do this.
No.
It was a seemingly random series of events that led you to have the knowledge that you have.
Yeah.
And now it's all getting utilized
at once
at the same time.
Yeah. That, like we were talking about, you know, nitrogen fixing plants and volcanic soil and like all these things I've done in my life, you know, economics, you know, horticulture, computer work,
yeah,
you know, all, you know, like, you know, learning with Kumapaula, you know, learning Hawaiian culture as a kid
before you even went out to get anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, like, and that's been really like that ideology has been a cornerstone of my life, in our life.
Yeah,
you know, like
huge.
learning how to live that way.
It is.
And yeah,
it's weird being part of like so fully rooted in like a capitalist driven world, but with that as kind of like your backbone, you know, because it all feels a little wrong all the time.
Everyone's like, why are we doing this? This is, you know, like you hear it and you read it, you know, like everyone knows something's wrong.
Right.
Like, and this isn't the way it's supposed to be.
No. And it's just so weird because, you know, there's such a big part of me that just doesn't like commercialism. I don't like capitalism. I don't like greed. I don't like fear and consumption. I don't like scaring people into do things. And literally, we live in a society where those are the backbones of our society.
Yeah.
Is all the things I just said that I'm uncomfortable with are literally what drives the world that we live in, right? I mean, it's nuts. Like people ask me about Black Friday. I was just ranting about this yesterday. Like, sure, we're doing a Black Friday sale, but as a whole, I don't like Black Friday. Like, I think it's the epitome of greed. It is, and it's a day where the world is telling us to not care about anything but stuff. And in my mind, as you know, all things are nothing, right? And God, I love Max Stirner. I've been just reading him more and more. I just don't know why he's regarded as the worst philosopher in history. And sure, he gave birth to nihilism and a bunch of other bad stuff. But you really look at the core, and he has a lot of really good concepts.
Well, once you get into Mises and stuff, and the guy who answered Max Stirner in this,
right?
Yeah, so like
he left a lot of stuff unfinished.
He did.
People really cut him off before he had a chance to say, like,
absolutely.
Well, to be fair, you know, like he never got that part of his on the stage moment. But anyway, I digress. It's you know, it's tough for me, right? Because, you know, we run a direct to consumer brand and we try to do it in the least greedy way possible, right? We're transparent, we're fair, we give more than we get. We try to give back for everything that comes to us. But at the core, right, we're still exchanging, you know, money for things. And, you know, I think like on Black Friday, especially, it's a holiday where you have all your family around, everyone's full, everyone's, you know, getting together as a group, and you're doing the most primal thing you can do, which is cooking and eating together as a group, right? And then you have like the clearest departure ever, as almost to rinse you from those good feelings. Go spend money, buy stuff, leave your family at home, and go get sales. You know, and so like at my core, like I can't stand it. Like I'd love to just I'd like to just do it on a different day. Maybe we'll do Black Friday on Halloween. We'll do super Black Friday next year. We'll do Halloween Black Friday or something. I don't know how I'm going to rip myself out of the construct that drives me so nuts. But you know, it's crazy when you think about how, you know, the seemingly random path that you take, right, is just like not random at all. And it's one of those things where we actually talked about this on stream a couple of weeks ago is, you know, so you're on that path and certain parts of it obviously are hard, right? Not all of it's easy. And there's like struggles along the way. And Dan and I were just talking about this when we were in Daytona, and we were sitting there looking at the water, and we're just sitting there talking about whatever comes to mind. And I'm like, how do you know when something you're doing is hard to do because you're not supposed to do it? And you're supposed to listen to those things, right? People say, hey, everything happens for a reason. Something's difficult. You got to look at why you're doing it. And maybe there's another direction you should go. But how do you know? Like, how do you know when something's difficult because you have to earn it and it's important? Or how do you know when something's difficult because it's not what you're supposed to be doing and the universe is trying to tell you that you should not be doing it? Like, in your head, I'd be interested to know, like, how do you differentiate that?
Well, so I always look at the mode, which is the why, and then from there I gather my means. You know, like the things I'm willing to do to reach the end. And then if my mode and my means, if, you know, being kind to somebody and never, you know, like I follow two rules, you know, doing to others as I would have others doing to me, not as I feel they'd have doing to me, and don't take anything that's not really given. And so like if I can't follow my mode, that means it's not a fit. Yeah, it's not a fit. And so, you know, I'll try a couple means there, and if I can't reach the ends I'd like, you know, sometime I'll talk to people about it and see how they feel about it. Or maybe it's just
maybe it's a bad fit.
Yeah.
And that's like the classic story, square peg and round hole situation, you know, like when is it a really tight fit of a round peg and a round hole, but I got to figure out the right angle to get it in there? And when am I actually trying to shave off corners of a square post to fit it in a round hole?
You know, to think on your questions, like which one I guess, you know, sometimes, you know, everyone overdoes things. It's, you know, but then when you realize you hurt somebody or, you know, any of these things, you know, like I really try to stop it. You know, like try and be emotionally aware all the time. If I'm harming somebody and if I'm struggling against something, that means I'm meeting resistance. And if it's human resistance or natural resistance, if I'm meeting human resistance, you know, this person is equally as interested in this as I am, or is in the opposite way.
Or in the opposite direction.
And I try not to put resistance against anything. But,
right.
You know, sometimes you find, you know, our friend River, who is one of the people in Kauai, he says, you know, for someone who's non-confrontational, Gabe, you have a lot of conflicts.
that sounds like River.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, you're talking about that path. I was just having a conversation with a stranger this morning, and they're like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "Well, kind of complicated, but I guess YouTube, right?" And they're like, "Oh," and I'm like, I'm a former teacher, a former coach, I was an athlete, and they're like, "Do you regret teaching?" And I'm like, "Well, I didn't like my last few years, but there's no way I would be the content creator and the community builder if I didn't teach, if I didn't coach." And when you get here, it's like, oh, that all made sense. Like it just made sense.
Dude, yeah. And we were just talking about that not too long ago too, Dan. Yep. It's like, you know, you look at some of the things that you've done and you're like, oh God, I wish I didn't spend so much time on that. And then a couple of years later, all of a sudden it comes back and you're like, oh God, yeah, well, because I did this and this and this for so long and couldn't stand it, I now realize this. Or once in a while, it makes you just appreciate the situational side of it too. When something sucks for so long, then when something you're doing that you really enjoy gets stressful, you're like, well, sure, it's stressful, but it sure as hell isn't what I was doing before. You know, it's what's a sunny day without a cloudy day kind of thing, I guess, right? But it's you know, so I mean, essentially, you're taking everything that you've learned in technology, horticulture, history, finance, e-commerce, you know, all community, right? And you're kind of putting that all to use at once and going back to the place that really set you off on that path to leverage all of it.
Yeah, it is. It's you know, this is the first war I ever encountered, and it's going to be hopefully the last one I ever encounter.
Yeah. And so, and you look at how Gabe and I are involved in this, like, okay, fine. What are a couple of white engineers doing to help, you know, the independent state and kingdom of Hawaii? And why the hell would they want us involved? You know, and really what it comes down to is, again, we have been outside of that vacuum for a while now, right? And we've gathered things that are useful inside of that chasm that exists there, right? Which is exactly what it is. It's a split in time and space that exists there on that island, and it's unique. And the things that we're doing, you know, so you look at the work that like Gabe has done that we just talked about, and you look at what I've done across so many different industries, from, you know, things across, God, you know, mechanics to you know, again, horticulture, but, you know, technology, and then looking at the community side of things. But then you start looking at so much time I've spent in the fintech space, and like, why did I spend so much time knowing about how clearing houses work for on and off ramps for payment gateways between disparate currencies, and looping in the cryptocurrency backing and clearing and transactional awareness? Like, why the hell did I focus on that for 3 years?
Why would anyone want to make a sovereign bank?
Why exactly? Why would anyone want to do that? And now all of a sudden, those things that seemed like, okay, well, it didn't contribute to anything I do for work. It was purely a passion project. Like, I was interested a little too much and spent too much time on it. And then all of a sudden, Gabe and I start talking, and he's telling me what he's doing. And I'm like, well, you should really think about how you're going to clear this and where it's going to actually relate to Forex, and how you're going to do off-ramp transmissions and reconciliations, and who's going to be the receiver and the capturer for these types of things, and how are you going to process credit cards? You know, and like all of a sudden we start kind of going down these rabbit holes, and Gabe's like, so clearly you're going to help with this too. And so it just became this interesting thing where, like, the stuff that I've done in the finance space on the technology back end of it, and what Gabe knows, you combine the two things together, and we literally have the basis for a currency agnostic financial system for a sovereign bank. And we literally, without even knowing it, built all of the pieces to this over the years together, independently and together. And it's crazy to see that, like, all of your seemingly random experiences and mine together have now come back to, like, actually have a positive impact on a culture that we really, really value,
and hopefully a positive impact on the world to free money. And
that's it. And the idea, and what's crazy about this, guys, I don't know who out there has been reading about, like, the BRICS system, right? Where, you know, you have a lot of foreign governments that are basically saying, let's not back things with the US dollar anymore. We're going to move to BRICS, which is basically backed by gold, land, and other hard assets. And you look at what countries have tried to do and what they've done with the value of land, like Hawaii, and it actually directly relates to those systems. And like Saudi Arabia and a bunch of other countries, in India, China, they're pushing really hard on this value-based, actual physical asset-based currency as a way to really curb future inflation and all kinds of problems. And of course, the capitalist pig inside of me as an American, right, says, well, I don't like that, right? I don't like devaluing the dollar, and all of those things that naturally come up, and all the things, of course, that you'll hear on CNN, of course, about devaluing the dollar are terrible things, and you think they're scary and awful. But then you really look into it and you're like, wait a minute, I'm being defensive, like immediately defensive, right? As soon as you hear that, and you hear that it's not backed by the US dollar, you know, greed and fear and economic worry and all those things kick in, and you think, well, this can't be good. And then you look at what someone's trying to do in a developing economy. We'll call it a developing economy. It's a huge economy based on the US dollar, but the private economy is a developing economy.
It is.
And so, you know, those things actually play really, really well into that. So there's like things happening in the world right now that could actually lead to other countries being able to do this for themselves. And this is almost like a proof of concept.
It is.
Yeah.
It's going to be beautiful. And the amount of value and money that like, you know, everyone, all the fiats, all the currencies in the world
Mhm.
come to Hawaii.
Yeah.
So it's standing as, you know, as Nick was saying, as a forex,
Right.
like the kingdom of Hawaii stands to be a neutral forex clearinghouse because we will have all of the fiat. Everyone wants to come to Hawaii and give us their money because it's the, you know, it's the most beautiful place to be.
And that's the craziest part about it. You look at like what that could be from a clearinghouse, and you look at like what the Seychelles Islands did. We were talking about that, and it became like a safe haven for monetary exchange, kind of like what they tried to do with the Virgin Islands and you know, like Swiss banks back in the days. What they tried to do, but that didn't work. The UN kind of messed that up for everybody. And so, but there's, you know, it's just, I don't know, it's really freaking cool. And you know, based on some questions that I see here too, things popping up, like we need to have like probably a dedicated stream to talk about crypto stuff. I mean, yeah. So like Ruben's like, what is your take on crypto and its viability and resources and cost? So, I mean, it's super duper viable, but the problem is, you know, there's two sides of it, right? There's like, well, there's multiple sides of it, but I guess the two biggest elephants in the room, right, is store of value. Yeah. Right. And then immutable ledgers. Right. And then you look at, of course, like the technology impact of blockchain as a whole. So there's really like the currency side of crypto. So crypto is like the currency side of blockchain. Right. But then you have the utility side of blockchain. And I think one is not viable without the other, in my opinion. Yeah. Right. I think and I think so, like, is it viable as just a currency? No, the utility cost is way too high.
It's going to continue to expand.
It's an exponential problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so, but can the currency exist if the utility provided value beyond store of value? Yes. Right. Yep. You look at the amount of compute power and storage that's spent tracking just, you know, electronic medical records and identity information. Like, imagine that being collapsed into a store of value system that then maintained a ledger on top of it. Now, all of a sudden, you're doing the thing where you're doing something that's less expensive and better, which very rarely exists.
That is, yeah, that's the, they call that Say's law. You know, when you can,
yeah,
you know, get more out of what you put into it, or at least get as much out of it as you put into it.
Yeah, hey,
you can keep going.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's like you know, economic centrifugal motion.
That's exactly what it is.
And one feeds the other. It's the snake eating itself. You know, it's the whole thing. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think Ruben, I think if people stop treating it like a currency and they start thinking about it like a utility that could then provide a store of value, I think that's great. But unfortunately, what we've done as humans with it is we've seen it as a shiny object, and we need to protect it and sell it. And then we, of course, start trading it. And then it just becomes an unsecured security, or it becomes an unregulated security, and the US government shuts it down and everyone else does. So the more regulation we put around it is actually a good thing from an economic standpoint. And I think the problem, though, again, is, you know, unfortunately, humans are pretty coin operated. So it's hard for us to look past doing many things if it doesn't have monetary value or impact.
It's the, you know, the proposed acquisitory value, like, so money is whatever you can get with it.
Right.
So it's whatever you can acquire.
And then that's just an expanding problem because of, you know, that's what causes inflation.
Yeah. The more, yeah.
Yeah. I can do this cheaper. I can do this cheaper. I can do this faster. And so somehow, like usual, we're 1 minute away from 2 o'clock. We've talked about new products. We've talked about Black Friday. Yeah. And so, and Gabe's watched this and said, like, well, I mean, it actually does kind of seem like an hour's gone by. But you know, it's crazy, man. This always happens. We get into good conversations and talk about, God, Hawaii. We've talked about some stories.
We didn't even get to talk about what we did when we were kids.
No, we didn't even get into any of those stories. God, we're going to need to change your flight and head back later so you can be on next week, and we'll do round 2. But, you know, it's, I'm going to key in on one of those next week, probably. I know the one you're talking about at Lumahai, and we got to talk about that.
That was
it's quite the experience.
Yeah.
We have a minute. Go for it.
Yeah. So, like, it was probably the second to last party I went to on the North Shore. And Nick and I went, and I don't remember what started the conflict. We were at Lumahai Beach.
Someone asked us over into the bushes to go, you know, partake, I think, or something.
And they decided that, you know, we were, you know, not welcome there. The whole idea of Howley and, you know, Howley.
Yep. And that started coming out hard.
And which is really great to know. You were there recently. That is the racism of Hawaii has been.
It's very much been dissolved a lot.
It has. Like they recognized the damage that it was causing.
Yeah, and it was harsh when we were kids. You couldn't do. Yeah, and that's what Jill said with open arms. I said our friend circle welcomed us in with open arms. The island did not. And so next thing you know, like Gabe and I are at this keg party. We're like kids. We're like stoked because there's a keg of beer there. We might get a cup of it, you know. And next thing you know, we're out in the kind of outskirts of the beach. And then next thing you know, we're getting chased down a dark road by like 6 dudes who were dead set on beating the crap out of us.
And they were like, I don't remember who they were because I don't remember either. And I never had any the problems I had left in elementary school. I didn't have problems with people.
Yeah, they went away.
And I don't know who these kids were, but Nick jumped. Like Nick was like, once he realized it was over, he turned face and.
Yeah, and so this is kind
I
of
learned a lot about Nick that day, and
I learned a lot about myself that day. So like, just to kind of, and I know we're over, but you know, if everyone's gonna go, it's okay. But you got to hear the end of this. It's so what. Gabe was always the tough one with the two of us. Like if there was a problem, Gabe was going to be the one that solved it with somebody or with me. And all of a sudden we found ourselves on the wrong end of a 6-on-2 situation. And I remember at one point, I don't know if I was kind of dazed or what, but I looked up and you were on the ground getting like kicked in the ribs.
Yeah, it was a rough spot.
And then somehow I cleared like 3 people out of this whole mess and got Gabe and I down the road, and we hitchhiked and got picked up by somebody and went to our friend Remy's house.
Yes.
And then his big brother Romeo went back and kicked the crap out of everyone who messed with us, which was great. But, you know, it was weird because it was one of those weird moments where Gabe was always kind of the one that was like in front of a physical conflict. Like, you guys know me, I'm going to talk my way out of it or solve the problem or become friends with people at some point, try to be a diplomat about the whole thing. That did not work this night. And Gabe got the brunt of these guys. And all of a sudden, the person that was normally there protecting me is like my brother, surrogate brother at that point, needed help. And
Nick was there to help me.
I have no idea what the hell happened that day. That's like the first time I'd ever gotten in a big physical altercation like that. And I think it's honestly probably the last since then too.
Yeah, it's hard to get,
it's hard to get under my skin like that. Yeah. And Gabe reminded me of that though. And it's weird. It was like, something freaking came out when like you see the person that normally protects you. Like, it's like if you were a kid and you're with your dad and he gets mugged, and you hear those stories about kids getting the attacker out of there, you know, superhuman strength comes out or something. I don't know what the hell happened, but it was like, that was another one of those moments. Like, be like, okay, well, we're inseparable for life. And that's a thing.
It definitely was.
Dude, yeah. Well, okay. Well, we had to send you guys off with that story because we talked about at least telling that one, and we got ourselves too distracted where we couldn't. So, but we're sending everybody off for Thanksgiving week.
Yeah, have a great Thanksgiving, everyone.
Everyone's going to have an awesome Thanksgiving, we hope. Keep the pictures coming, and I hope you guys enjoy these new shower products as much as everyone hoped that we would, and they smell fantastic, so enjoy. Also, in case this new hat that I'm wearing here, this is also online. You guys were asking for that. It went live last night, so we got the new leather patch hats. You liking that one?
I like it. It does smell good. Like, I'm kind of like you. I'm not a peppermint kind of person.
But you like that one?
It does. It smells good.
It's like a natural peppermint.
Yeah, and I can see how it would pick up in the shower, like aerosolize.
Yeah. Oh, it's huge. Well, I'll send you home with some stuff. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I don't know if Dan is he's still remote. Who knows if his audio is working or if he got kicked out of the room he was in. Oh, he's still there. But man, yeah, go ahead and next Tuesday, 1:00, we will be here fat and happy after Thanksgiving. Hopefully I'll get myself out of whatever, turkey induced nap I might still be in from leftovers at that point, and we will have some more fun next week. Oh, sorry. This Friday, also with the Black Friday sales coming out on Friday, is Yule Tree in all of the shower products. Figured I'd just save that one for the end. I know Jill's going to kick me if I don't say anything about it. So beard wash, beard conditioner, and body wash, Yule Tree is coming your way. Labels are coming in. We're bottling. We're getting things done. But they will be available during the Black Friday sale, and will stay online through the holiday season, just like the oil. So we'll talk about that on Tuesday next week as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you 1 p.m. next week.